There's not going to be any introduction to my teacher and my friend Doshi. I'm going to welcome Mr. Doshiji, Doshi. That's what we fondly refer to him, and he wants it like that. I was not enrolled in CEPT. I studied here in Dhaka, but when I started my education studying architecture, I felt that I had a teacher there in Ahmedabad. So in 1981, few of us, Qazi Ashraf is one of them, who is the Director General, we all traveled to Ahmedabad. And from the train station, we went straight to the school, CEPT, and we met with the school people. We sought assistance in accommodation and seeing. We were there to see Corbusier, we were there to see Kahn, and we were there to see Doshi's work. We saw the officer go to the office of the head, and Mr. Doshi came out. When he learned about this few young man has come from Dhaka, he immediately organized our stay and assigned one of the senior students to guide these young people from Dhaka. Probably this was the first time that some students from Dhaka had gone to Ahmedabad. And I have to confess, like Yohani, this generosity and the warmth that was extended to this young man in 1981 has not changed till today. Whoever turns up in Ahmedabad, that also includes me, and seeks Doshi out, his door is always open. And I felt like that. But what about his coming to Dhaka? In 1985, he was supposed to come to Dhaka to attend the Aga Khan seminar. Unfortunately, he had an accident. He could not travel at that time, but we did not give up. Qazi and his wife traveled to Ahmedabad, invited him, and then we went to invite him again. In 1987, he came for the first time to Bangladesh. And there began our friendship. So it's an honor to welcome, invite Mr. Doshi, and I've decided that I'm not going to speak much, but I'm going to show some images from that visit in 1987. And another coincidence is that I, for the first time, met Professor Palasma at Ahmedabad, and we had a lovely time in 2007 at Doshi's home. We shared a dinner. So what more can we ask for from this two wonderful person who has come here to Dhaka? With these images, I end my introduction, and I'd like to invite Mr. Doshi to the stage to come and share his talk with us. Mr. Doshi.
We never notice light. We just assume it. But when an object is created around it, it creates a nuance. It is an effort. Each step of the ladder is different. But with each step, you gain a new perspective. Not just see and admire nature, inhale it. Experience comes first, form much later. Create a bond, a sense of belonging, not just with the physical form, but with eyes, with sound, with senses, and then the landscape will begin to appear. The question I asked, what was important? Was it the form of the building or the content, the space? Look around. Every object around us, the nature itself, lights, sky, water, stone, everything is in a symphony. And this symphony is what architecture is all about. My work is the story of my life, continuously evolving, changing and searching. Searching to take away the word architecture and look only at life. I have been on this search for many decades. And it still mesmerizes me at every turn. It has been all my life, and I will happily be doing it for many more decades to come. There are no words for me to thank all of you. It's 20 years, more than 20 years that I was here. And I enjoyed not only the city, but going in the boat and meeting other people and traveling around Dhaka. And especially talking to Professor Nazrul Islam and Professor Varez and others. It was not different from where I come from. We are the same. Everything is not changed. You feel at home here, and you know that the time, space, activities, except the language perhaps, everything is continuously the same. And so I came again twice, talked to people here. They also came to Ahmedabad. And thereafter, I met Qazi and also Saif. And we became not only friends, but we started talking about architecture, issues, what can happen, what is education. And all this continued without being personally present, but through correspondence, through books, through literature. And then one day I got a book on Dhaka by the Bengal Foundation Institute. And I was quite stunned and very happy that there is an institute which has been formed in Dhaka, in Bengal, Bangladesh, on architecture, landscape and settlements. There are no such institutions anywhere in India which are talking about it, which are not directly connected to education, not connected to any agency, not connected to any particular target, but basically connected to themselves, their people, their land, their work, and their aspirations. And I think this is something unique, and I must congratulate the chairman for what he has done and what he is doing. And then I also visited in my last trips BRAC Institute, and yesterday I had a privilege of meeting the chairman again, and I found how much work is going on in the fields, where there are people who are have-nots, they have nothing. And I think that is the situation not here. I am not far away. We are maybe at the moment politically different, but culturally we are the same. So it was a pleasure, and yesterday we drove for more than an hour, hour and a half. And I was looking at those landscapes, those people, that traffic, people around, hatch, the bamboo structures, then people walking around, small buildings, water bodies, corners, landscapes, buildings being half-heartedly done, some are growing. I found the same vitality, same energy, and same level of desire to grow and go about. So if one looks at all this, then I was asking Professor Palasma that supposing there was no word as architecture, and he also partially said yes. I think the word confuses us, and it gives us boundaries, it gives us walls. It tells us that this is the only way. I think we don't talk about it when we talk about music, we don't talk about festivals, we don't when we go to the literary circles, or we don't talk about our food also, or our behavior. We look at everything as one whole, one entity. For us, the entire environment is one. Building happens to be an enclosure which is static, but it is an extension of our body. And that extension is something which we talk about. So when I began to think about this a few days ago, I was wondering, what is this statue? What am I? What am I doing? So I wrote a little piece, and that piece was my childhood. And I was remembering something, and so I thought maybe it is something which is flowing, constantly changing, evolving. And I wrote it saying that learning and growing is like flowing river. It starts with a drop of water. Gradually it becomes a spring. And over distance and journeys, it absorbs, participates, becomes part of many rivulets, then becomes a river, goes through the landscape, goes through the culture. And it doesn't say who he or she, the river is. The river is a river. I mean, Ganga and Brahmaputra, they are here, and you can witness them around, and you see how they merge with landscape. But say then, when they start reaching toward the ocean, they begin to ask question, what is my nature? Because I have absorbed every culture, every time, every place. I have absorbed civilizations, I have absorbed humanity's dance and music. But where am I going? So those many flavors which are there, those create an imprint in the river. And though it flows independently, it doesn't lose its feelings and its pursuits. The river remains the river itself. It has an identity. And I think that is what our life is about. What is our identity? Who are we? And why do we have to look at others and say, this is what me or not? I don't think that happens when we are in a family or friends or other places. So what we do is learn to absorb, but we deep within us, we hold our inner calling. If we are architects, so-called architects, but we are lover of art, music, literature, theater, humanity, and friends and family. Why should that binding be there and made into a rock solid so that we cannot go? I think that inner quality is what has been holding me for the last 60 years. This film that you saw was done for my retrospective in the National Gallery Museum of Modern Art last year, 2 years ago. It was done by, and the film was curated by Khushnu, my granddaughter. And this was made with an idea to talk about really architecture. Where is it? What is it lies there? So if one was learning, teaching, doing this, where do we go? So in my case, this has become a journey of constantly negating, pursuing, understanding, and analyzing what architecture is. Luckily, I had the privilege of working with two great masters, Corbusier and Kahn, because I did not have a formal architectural education. So two things happened. I learned from them about the craft and the kind of nature of space. What I saw today, this morning, is what architecture is. But it doesn't say its own, it doesn't insist that this is what it is. I think this is like a sponge, a porous building in which everything becomes part and parcel. Container and content is like a human being and a human body. So what I'm going to do now is just to go through the journey of my 60 years quickly, of saying what did I learn from the beginning and how did I learn and what was it. And perhaps that will give you an idea of where I am trying to go. Can we see the slides, please? Corbusier taught me about life, about environment, about culture, and about the glory and celebration. So I called my exhibition, that retrospective, we called it Celebrating Habitat. And I think he told me how to celebrate life through what we do, so-called architecture. How does it work? So in my 1950s, we are like here when we talk about today, it is the same story in India. When I came there was no availability of cement, steel, and you only had bricks and you had labor. So Vikram Sarabhai asked me to do some housing at the same price as a hut is made, and so I had to make my low-cost housing with brick arch. And as you will see, it is also used outside and inside. Oh, sorry. Moves very fast. So, as you notice here, how do you point out this maybe? People use outside space, people use this space, so that I really realized that house is not an enclosure, but house is what it surrounds and what it radiates from. And that is why you begin to see the old cities and streets and towns, and you find this house spreads outside on the streets. It is also the marriage functions, facilities are there. So this is really the beginning of the work. Then I found that this was not what people can live. So when we did some townships, two things happened. Township has restricted spaces, and how do you really give them a space for their climate? How will they be able to use summer evenings and sleep on the terrace outside? Or what can they do to grow something? So on the creeper they can grow vegetables, and on the terrace they can sleep there. So one begins to change the definitions of a building. Building also extends, building goes beyond. And then in 1960s, when I was doing our own house, I was wondering about what is really the nature of my identity, and I found that I like the temples. I like those places where there are curved sajjas and others. And I found that in the, this is not working, yeah. I found this curved wall here of a Hindu temple where the water would flow and go like this. So you do get a shadow like this, but you also get the water far away and you get a different sound. And rather than having a chhajja like what we traditionally do. So I was trying to work out some elements of architecture which can give me something else out of a building and a box. So I created this box, and then the issue was, is this something that I can get? Because I was thinking about climate, I was thinking about insulation, I was thinking about breeze, I was thinking about comfort conditions, I was thinking about open spaces. So you begin to think like this, and as one goes along, I found out that there are many techniques of building. You can build with walls, you can build with columns, you can put them in line, you can put them in staggered. That is really how it happens. So I was not thinking as an architect, I was thinking as a person who is playing a game. And in that I found that one could change the spacing, one can change the regular ones. And then we come back and we do columns, then how the column and the space can happen, and gradually the space can change. And then I was confused about the character of the place. And at one point I went to a brick kiln to buy the kilns. And I found that in the tin roof of that place of the brick kiln, there was a staircase, and a woman came down with bricks on her head. And as she came down the steps, I found the lights coming from the holes into that metal sheets. And I found a very beautiful light. And then suddenly I said, my God, this is really what possible architecture can be. The romance of architecture, the movement. So the woman and the staircase and the columns became my idea. I came home and I drew these 4 columns. And the moment I drew these 4 columns, and I thought maybe I should use bricks, so I made these walls, oriented the building, and then I added the rooms there around with the cavity wall, because I was just thinking that if I have to have a house, what would happen to the children? Would they be able to see the garden? Would they be outside? Is this possible to be comfortable? Can the spaces be closed so that you can be like a thermos box? So that it should be really completely enclosed, but it should be completely open like a pavilion. So that is the way I began, and that is how this house was done with a cavity wall. This was the first time my God. This was the first time so first time the cavity walls were made, and those overhangs became of that skylights there. And then this is the way the house happened, and the staircase and the windows and the jharukhas. As a child, I was grown up into a joint family. And in that family, no space was defined. The spaces were spilling from one another, then they were added on, then they were used for multiple functions. And then they could be used by anybody, anytime, depending upon the situation. And I had therefore still today, I have a different feeling about space. I think space is an animated thing, and the way we manipulate, it tells us about its own story. So I thought that if we make spaces, is it possible that they can be made enclosed, or they can be closed, or they can be flexible? And that is really what I did here in the house. So as a result, I found that I had no windows and no glass wall, but all wooden doors. So in summer, etc., I could close the whole surface with wooden walls. And there is this landing which I extended so that it becomes like a private jharukha that we have in old houses. So the idea was to pick up threads from culture, pick up things from my culture, etc., and see whether they can be working together. And then these 4 columns became very important. And I realized that elements like this, when they are put together in a link manner, and if you change the heights and volumes, suddenly it begins to give you a very different sense of space. That was the first time I realized that the spaces can be manipulated. And spaces like in Indian music, if you have a tabla and if you have a sarod or sarangi or a vocal music, I think the rhythms can play together. So if you are brought up into a culture where music is common, paint is common, prayers are there, then parties are there, the gatherings are there, and functions change all the time, I think this whole idea of a definite, finite object, I thought it may not be the right thing to do. So that is the way this house then I did. And then if you can see as you arrive from here, and those columns I'm standing below, you can see the garden. So the whole thing became a pavilion. So whether you have a pavilion or whether you have a house, I think the question is what would trigger that thing to happen? So the essential thing of architecture, I thought, was the basic ideas and basic assumptions that one does without any preconceived notions of this or that. I think what I learned in that joint family over time was because of the generations together, there were different viewpoints constantly going on. So there were many interpretations to the same function, to the same meaning. And then little later I added a terrace and a house extension, and therefore then there's a library below and a room. So questions are, how does one really add on, and can we have a summer place, can we have winter and others? So these definitions I did not have, but I was thinking about living a life as it came, manipulating the space and creating a relationship between them and the way we live. And when you open the house completely from a dining area, etc., the house becomes a pavilion. And then one could do many things. For example, you don't need to have the same sizes. So within the house, you can also create some other spaces which can be useful for different functions, like this one is a library. And then if by chance, this happened by chance, that the orientation came, and it was good that early morning sunlight came into the basement. So it is possible that if we think as a toy, if we think as not an object but as kind of functions, then we do get a different kind of structure or an enclosure. And then, as we say in our houses, spaces change. When visitors come, the same room can become a public space, it can be general place, it can be bedrooms for everybody. Or if there's a marriage, we can use those rooms. So conversion, transformation, and diffusing that finite functional idea, I think is very important. And what I learned about this is that if we can make those spaces, if we can make things more flexible, if we can make the spaces which can be added, manipulated, they could be a lot more meaningful. And you have also very favorable conditions. In every culture there are nuances of weather. So can we really use the weather to the advantage? What it means is the house or a building a static thing or is it dynamic? Is it really a living being or it is only an object? And I think the moment we think it has a life and it is living, then when the sun comes up and when you find a winter sun or when you find hot summer sun or you find monsoon rains, I think if they come and touch you, if they come as part and parcel, we feel that there is a dialogue. So what I understood then was that a building must have a dialogue with others as well as yourself. So it is like a living being, it is like an extension to your own life. Then as the clients come, as situations change, and when the economy is changing, the client's requirements change. So I had the problems of doing housing for industries and townships, and every time you do a building, they would say, I want to change the program, I want to add a building. And then if you have people who live there, they would say, can I change the room and can I make this room small or can I add something to the room? And I did not know how it can happen. And that time I was doing this township for Maharaja Jai Singh Jaipur. And I realized there in these buildings that this Jaipur city looked very beautiful, harmonious. Oh. Jaipur city looked harmonious, but then I started to study this and I removed these surfaces and gradually came to the bare wall, and I discovered that there were a whole lot of additions which came over time, and it gave a harmony to everything because they came differently. So if you see all these windows, etc., they could become this or that, or maybe they would change into something else. So all these variations were possible. So what it means is, in our society, we don't like to pronounce an individual by his identity. We like to prefer a little anonymity. But even then, we like to highlight a uniqueness in that anonymity. And that I discovered here, and I thought that even in our own buildings, we should really have the quality which can change the character and everybody would have a choice. I think we are a growing society, we are an economical society, we are a frugal society, and we need to maximize the use of place. Second, we are a very stable society, usually. Once we stay there, we don't like to move that fast because our social structure is like that. We like to remain closer to our friends, to our families. So in that case, if we can't change but our needs change, can we change our space in which we live? And I think that is the time these additions, modifications become important. And that is what then I started pursuing. So in 1980s, when I started doing some housing for the Life Insurance Corporation, they had asked me to do 3 different categories of housing in 3 different places in the large plot of land. One was 400 square feet, other was 700 square feet, third was 1,000 square feet. And I thought that once you separate, you are already segregating and creating distinction between society. And I think in a changing society, especially with the children and the families, with the dialogue that we have, I think we don't like that distinction. And this I had done with other housing, and I realized what that means. It is actually specifying something and creating an inner conflict of status, etc. So growth and addition was my purpose. And as a result, what I proposed to them was that I would do this in one block of a pyramid. And that pyramid is that this is a bigger house here, this is the model, and then this is a lower house here on the side, and the smallest house is here, each one getting a terrace. And this one gets an open ground. And I proposed to them with a drawing that these houses will modify and they will add everything together. And this model you can see, you can add there, you can add a roof, you can add other things. While it was going on, they refused, and after 2 to 3 years, they agreed to do this proposal rather than having segregated housing blocks. We did this about 300 houses, and in which I put the lowest house on top. Today, after this 30 years almost now, the houses are not only occupied by the same, only 5 to 10% people have changed, but they have become prosperous. So they have encroached the open spaces. They have also occupied on the sides. Then they have actually added on the rooftop. So all these things have happened. And I think what I thought was, as architectural profession, we should think about the social network. We should think about the nature of the family and the kind of social, cultural relationship we have between us. And I think that was for me an important thing, which became a very important criteria for the next housing projects, etc. I was doing. So this is how these extensions happen. And every time you go there, the place looks different. So there are 2 things. One is people do need to see change. people do need evolution, like we change, our bodies change, our face, character changes. I think similarly, if we look at a building as a living organism, then we will see that this is possible, and then it becomes a real home and not a dwelling which is transitory. And then in the course of time, in the discussions with the Gandhiji's ashram people and others, I realized, and I found one quotation there in Gandhiji. He says that I will give you a talisman whenever you are in doubt or when the life becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man whom you may have seen, and yourself, if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him, will he gain anything by it? Will it restore and control over his own life and his destiny? In other words, will it lead to Swaraj for the hungry? I thought this is also a role which we have to play. Now, one advantage I had was that when I was teaching in the school, I had started the planning school and I started the interior and other colleges. So, exposure for me as a professional was of a different kind. We had social anthropologists, we had musicians, we had literary people coming in. And as a result, I realized that the culture is a holistic thing. And if we are looking at ourselves and if we are thinking about a type of community or a kind of client, I think that may not be the right thing. As a professional, we should get involved with every kind of society and look at them and saying, we will also give you a good place to live. I think the priority is how do we improve the quality of those who are have-nots, who have nothing. And as a result, when I had a project, and incidentally this one I always remember because this simple charkha is used by every member of the family, those who use them of course, at any time that they are free, and that is the spinning wheel, but that also gives them income, and that also makes a social, cultural communication system. I think as a professional, our job is also to look at the society as a whole and think about how do we look at this as a part and parcel. What I'm trying to say is, architecture is one of the ingredients of life. And I think that ingredient must become as living as the life is. And so I began to think about the kind of issues that we have. We have people and we have this, and if you go on the roads anywhere, you can go out here and see how many ways people use their transport system. How many ways they can put how many people into their rickshaws and in their vehicles, in their cars, on their trains. Now this situation, what I see here, is not different from India. It may be a little better, etc., but still the situation is the same. Number of people, our community life, our relationship, our interdependence, our belief system, I think tells us to be together always. There are restrictions of land, there are restrictions of place, there are restrictions of housing. But in all of this, what is the role of an architect? So when I started the planning school, the purpose was to talk about planning at a larger scale as well as the macro scale. So micro and macro scale planning, when you start doing, you think of settlements, you think of squatters, and you think also of the people in the big cities like Bombay and others. And I think it's a very, very important point, and I was glad that the foundation here, Bengal Foundation, Bengal Institute, is looking into those issues. And I think that is really what another purpose is. So when you look at all this, then the question is, how do you give them a choice? So I had a chance to do 4,000 houses for the economically weaker section, the people who came, migrants who came from outside, who had no land, who had no money. And those people who needed something, how do you really provide them housing? So the Madhya Pradesh government had asked me to do this, and I realized that if we want to do this, then they will only get a plinth first, a little plinth, then a wall, then the addition, then the roof, temporary roof, and gradually they will add the building. so that the only way one can do is, how do you do buildings which are expanding, modifying and changing rather than having them constant. Second, I think how do we look at nature so that the energies are used fully in terms of sun, wind, water, etc. And gradually then I built these houses. So interesting thing was that when I was doing this housing, the World Bank and Government of India had many schemes in different states. And what they were trying to do was build with a standard plan. I thought that people enjoyed their village life. If you go to the rural areas, they may have nothing, but they have smile, they have joy, and whatever they can do, they do within themselves. Now all these things, we have to bring back. So if we do those, and then give them a space, then that space will also become modified and also they can do their businesses there. So this is the way I began to propose, and rather than putting them again in different sectors like 400 square feet or 100, 300 square feet or 30 square meters is in the separate place, no. I said I'll put them in such a way that they can go on adding and changing and modifying. What I'm trying to say here is that the architectural profession is not only the building itself, it is the organism and it is actually an extension of a biological order. And I think that is a very important thing. How does one go on adding? So we did this and then we added and we made, this is how a normal plan is made. Oh, again. This is how, this is the, what happened? So this is how a normal plan is made, but eventually they do change. So they would modify, they would encroach, they will add staircase, they may like to use the terrace, then they will add another floor, they can increase their income level. So we did this plan, there was a lot of opposition, but finally when it was done, a couple of things happened. Different trade, different communities, because they were all landless people. They had to pay, they had migrants, so it is called economically weaker section housing. So in that housing, you have to provide them a plinth, one toilet built, and one tap for the kitchen and electricity. Over time, they build. Over time, when they build, they have initiative of earning and doing something of their own. It begins with clothes, canvas, jute, tin sheets, and slowly the building begins to take place. Now, 20 years later, the things will change and the houses will become better. They get a job, then they rent the house, they sublet, and the community also changes. So in that, we had also on the periphery were bigger houses, inside were the smaller houses. So even the children of the poor and the rich or well-off people live together and they grow together. So the whole idea, the role of architecture, not being an architect only, but also somebody who is interested in the social restructuring. And this is what we did. And this was built, and there are these houses. Gradually everything added, and today it has been one of the most successful housing projects. Why I am trying to show this is because this role we normally don't talk about in the urban areas. We professionally do buildings, large buildings. We do buildings, which are of public use or maybe for specialized people, etc. But we don't concern. And I think the role of an architect should be also to be a social activist. And this is what slowly happened. And when I went there 6 months ago, I found people with their other 2 floors added. Their children have educated. Many of them have gone colleges. They have, some people have washing machine. Some people have 1 air conditioner. Some people have sublet the roofs of upstairs apartments. So all these things, I think, are part and parcel of our professional work. I also discovered in the old cities, our spaces were used differently. In the old cities, the road is never private, it is a part of the community. when there is a marriage or anything takes place, they block the road for a day and everything is used. We also use and share all kinds of life together. I think that has been now gradually, when we go to multi-storied buildings, when we go to the flats, we lose that connection. Slowly we are eliminating. I think the societies are changing. It's not that it is right or wrong, I am saying. I am saying if we can do certain things, it might, interdependence is very important in getting together. I think the cooperation that we talk of reverence, we talk of values, we talk of societies, where people work together. I think those are important considerations and they should be also looked into. And you can see what happens to those people when they build, so somebody's rented. So the nature of architecture was no more as a building or a static form, and neither a defined form. It doesn't have a vocabulary. It is like you go and buy so many kinds of fruits in the market, and you have all the variety of fruits, and that fruit is good by itself. So the integral way of doing things, but every character can be manifested. This also demonstrates the kind of society we live in. So it can go beyond merely a professional, isolated definition. But this is really regarding the housing that I did, but then there are other places, where you start thinking as an architect and you start thinking about the use of a building and what you have learned about technology, profession, expression. So when I got this project to do in 1960s, to do the manuscript museum, library, I thought one of the conditions of the client was that there will be no air conditioning available, we don't have much money. So you have to preserve those manuscripts. So the only way was to put it in the basement, get an indirect light, like what I have done here. This is the earth here, the light comes from top, this is the basement, which is here below. And then this is a Jain manuscript. So there are Jain monks, sadhus, sadhvis, they come there, but other scholars also come. So I thought that in those times that maybe I should try and find out how will I relate it to our culture and our place. I was fascinated by that old building I had seen with wooden structure and wooden balconies, and I thought maybe that delicacy if I can get. So two things were there, using new technology, concrete, then creating no air conditioning but creating natural, comfortable conditions, and third, creating that kind of expression, and this is really what this building happened. This was, many things were precast. And this is the Institute of Indology. So what I wrote there was architectural style and character strengthens the respect for culture. So this is how it was there, in the beginning. Barren land, now it is lush, surrounded by the place. It encourages people to have something. It gives them an identity. It gives them something valuable. So there are many ways to really think about architecture. You think architecture as social activism. You think architecture as creating institutional buildings. You think about architecture as only exploration of space or light, but you can also merge them together. So questions would be, how do we relate it so that we use less energy? Is it possible when we talk about sustainability, we talk about oil crisis, we talk about expensive tools, techniques, is it possible to create architecture where we use or we incorporate natural resources to our advantage and create architecture which is gradually very close to our nature and our culture? Then we extended the building. Institutions always expand. Institutions are continuously expanding. The programs change, philosophies change, and I think they need to be given that way, that how can the building and architecture can become, in a larger context, what it means is sustainability of architecture itself. What is surprising is that when this was built, immediately people thought that it is very closer to their old houses in the city. And gradually then people came, sometime there was a lapse, but now again people are starting coming there. There are two things here, architectural aesthetics and then technology, material and skills to use. Now one can do it in many ways, and this is one way that I had thought of that time. What I have been trying to do is trying to understand for myself what is it, because in the childhood I used to go to the zoo very often, with my grandchildren also, but myself. And I was amazed by the type of animals and animals, insects, plants, reptiles, below ground, above ground, in the sky. And how come that they are such diverse, but they are integrated? And how come, that they really survive and sustain? What is it that is there? And I think, is it necessary then that I should live with the stamp of an architect, or should I explore this through the means that I have understood? So when I had to do the school, I thought education should be without boundaries. Because whenever we have a school, whenever we think we have also curriculum, we have admissions, we have a future prospect of the student, but actually we are talking about a human student as a person who will be himself and eventually learn to be himself and grow as himself, like the forest grows, with the trees. So this is really what I was doing. So I was studying many schools, then I was talking about the basement, and then I found for the school campus, the land in the far corner here, which was a brick kiln. And then I started the campus. Now the campus has become a university, what just now you heard before. So this is the school in which we have School of Architecture, School of Planning under Design, School for Interior Design, Visual Arts Center, Fine Arts Center, a Gufa. All these things were built over 20, 30 years, 50 years almost. So all these things were built with an idea that you diffuse the boundaries. There should be no boundaries of learning and growth, and even on defining the quality. So sensitizing people, one can think about. And so the brick kiln which was there, I found out that if the brick kiln was available, why not really use that brick kiln in front and create a building? So you can get a landscape, because a wasteland can be also used. So actually it is important to look at the age of the water, age of your land, age of your building. And I think that is what we were discussing about Dhaka itself. That how come such fantastic, beautiful nature, you cannot accede, you cannot reach there. How can it be that it cannot become even richer than what it is? And I think, is there some way to plan it in such a way that we recover our nature and natural resources and bring the glory back? So this is how our classes were, outdoor and indoor, depending upon the seasons. This is a 1962-64 photograph. And then you find that outdoor spaces can be used. So this is all levels which were natural. This level, these steps are natural. They go right down and it goes below road level. So the whole idea is that water collection is possible. You can do farming, you can put trees, you can put plantations, but the student get the benefit. The people who come there get the benefit. In fact, it became a public space. So it is possible to create areas which can become participatory, Can architecture be participatory? Can it be done like that? Also in our climate, hot climate in Ahmedabad, this is a big relief. Trees and lawn, and at least in the evenings one can sit there, the temperatures become comfortable. Then there is other question of creating connections. When we make a staircase, when we make a space, when we do an institution, should not the institution get surprises, constant surprises? Should not the institution have places where the rules can be broken or rules can be twisted? Rules in the sense of personal movement, personal walking, going around, or meeting people by chance and creating a dialogue. I think there are a lot of things which we don't think about. The school is not a classroom. School is all over. And if there is all over, what are the ways that we create many chances and occasions to meet and discuss and do things? It does happen in our old city. Actually, I constantly remember the old city of Ahmedabad and many old cities where when you go there, you enjoy because the life becomes slow, then there is variety, then there is a mixed traffic, then there is also mixed land use, and then you can see that you can do things there and time gets slowed down. There's no rush, no pressure. And I think it's very important to create those communities and not isolated places. Institution is not an isolated place. It is a part and parcel of the whole center. So staircases, open spaces become public gathering places, etc. So there are multiple uses. And of course, to use these kind of things, the north light is the most efficient. It doesn't use much light, sunlight, and you do get a constant diffused light there, and cross ventilation is very important. So one does get the ventilation through, so that doors are the doors and windows are open. And in our school, the building made one big difference. The building, when it was done, the program loosened up. The visitors came and they became participants in a running class. Then other activities started. The students wanted to have a music program and they converted the classes into music halls. Then there were dances, then there was a theater. So you could invite then all the best professionals who are around to give an elective or show demonstration. So the purpose of an institution is that there is no boundary there. It is all open. It can be used all the time. And the students, even for the sake of information, in the early years, the school was 5 years. The student did not go away till 8 years. He liked the place. He thought it is the second home. And I think they have eventually become a different people. I think there is also a role of an architect. How do we create transformations? How do we create change? How do we create awareness of the things around? In an air-conditioned room, if we are sitting all the time, we don't know the day, we don't know the time, we don't know the heat, we don't know the humidity, but we also don't know the neighbor. Neither we hear the bird sound. And I think those things are extremely important, and especially where in our culture, where that helps us economically also. Why not? And then the students then naturally become active, then they can use many spaces for different purposes. So it becomes, students get an initiative. Students become participants and they become eventually the leaders. And I think that is what we have to do, where even a common person also becomes an active member of a society, which we call an elitist society. These are all programs, many programs are all done, organized by the students. So this was Sharafat. So we get people, what you do here in the institute, Bengal Institute, I was so glad to know that you get one of the best musicians here and the programs are available for anybody during that period. I think this is something which we miss and this is something which we have to do. Then there was also the Kanorias. Once you start doing it, lot of private people also come and they say, we would like to set up an institution because we have some funding. So this is Mrs. Kanoria who came, she has things in Calcutta, but she was in Ahmedabad, she set up a foundation and then she did this whole thing and called Kanoria Center of Fine Arts. So then there is a literary festival there. So all these things start happening. Today in our profession, we are compartmentalizing, we are zoning them, and we are restricting their use to particular thing with an idea of efficiency. But actually, what is that efficiency if it is going to lose us, a part of our understanding of life? And I think this is something which we have to know. And that is why all campuses must be opened up, all the streets must be opened up. Everywhere we should talk about the public and the private and participation. So we did those buildings again. So every time we do, then we added this gallery. So slowly Ahmedabad now, which Baroda is a big center of arts, fine arts in India. There are something like a couple of hundred students, artists staying in one city. Major center of art is Baroda, like Shantiniketan is in Calcutta, near Calcutta. But this one is becoming a center because after this, then there is a restaurant added on, then there is an adda and people start meeting there, students come there and gather and discourses happen. I think the profession of architecture is not a profession, it is a social obligation, it is a social network. And actually, this is India. This is how we are, mixed. We always have diverse things. This is all I learned over time. Gradually, as you go along, think more and more about this. That what is it why these things are going on in our culture over centuries? What is that root? What is that cause which is giving us these things? And how come that we are what we are? And I think once we start asking them, you look at the Moharram or you look at Ganesh Utsav or you look Tajia, you look at anything there, everything is happening as a mixed place. And then you see that in spite of the diverse languages, diverse beliefs, we all come together. So what is that thread? What is that diversity which binds us? What is that philosophy which really tells us that be togetherness, reverence, forgiveness, tolerance, all those things that we talk. But this is practiced in society. But as a professionals, we don't look at it that way. And then you look at the city structures. All these things I learned gradually. And I found out that this kind of city where animals, people, this is the old city of Ahmedabad, a very small portion, 600-year-old city. Here, everything is efficient. You walk, it's a walkable city. You walk anywhere, it has a couple of 100,000 people there. It's not small place. But what happens is that the husband, wife, children, neighbor, everybody begins to work. Distances are close, land use is mixed. Today, the laws, we only make laws. Architects make laws when they join the government. Bylaws of building. We don't make the zoning laws. We make other laws. No, all those laws are not actually helping us. They are cutting us down. They are fragmenting us. And I think the role should be the other way around. And so I found out these people, in different places, how they sit, look at the way they have turban. This gentleman there on top. I found him one morning going on the Royal Enfield motorbike with all the jewelry bedecked. And so I stopped him when he came, I went there and I stopped him. I said, "What is it?" He says, "No, today is my birthday." I thought, what a good thing to feel about oneself, proud, happy, rejoicing. Now, all this we are feeling shy of doing this. We are feeling shy of becoming something. And then, this one is a mobile market. Now, why are we dependent on a place? So, we are innovative, we are intelligent, we like variety. Our foods are very different. Every region has a different thing. We dress differently. We speak many different languages. And yet we don't give that recognition. And I think if we give that recognition, then naturally you would give recognition of that variety to building also. And if you do that, your whole cluster would change. And that I found in the thali. Years ago, I was discussing, when I went abroad, I wanted soup, but they gave me the first dish and they say, soup we will give now, dessert we will give you much later. So we separate it and we here give this. Now, in a big marriage and festivals, this is cooked for 500 people, 200 people, 100 people. Everybody takes what they need. They mix the way they like, and they enjoy the meal, and then they are very happy. Now, if I extend this to those earlier slides, and then if I connect them to that diversity, to that choices, to the clothing that I mentioned earlier, and to the program that I am adding to my design of architecture, I think what I'm trying to do is connect all this together and find that they're all part of that environment. Do you know, when we talk of architecture, we don't talk about architecture, we talk about Sthapaji, the one who establishes. And then we always talk about Vastu. I'm sure everywhere people talk about Vastu. But it is a total environment. It's a design of a total environment in which the whole system has become a living system. Now, in that living system, if you look at it, it must not have a finite line. It should be diffused. It should be intermixed. It should have diverse proportions depending upon the need. And I think that is really what I have been trying to think about and practice. So when we are doing this, these are the things, which we need. We must integrate the environment, we must integrate lifestyle, we should have a choice and we should have opportunity to create a city. And I think if that is to be done, then we look at the cosmic laws, nature, etc. And this is the way I had planned that city in Jaipur. But while doing this, I thought of Ahmedabad and Jaipur and others. I took a lot of photographs and I collected them and make them into one picture. And we never notice it when we drive and walk, but we see also in Ahmedabad cows and others. We can say it's unorganized. But we also see the classical buildings and we see mud houses and we see modern buildings. Then we see rickshaws, we see people around, we see festivals. And all this tells us that this is what we are. But then why are we talking about separate disciplines? Why are we talking about complete isolation? And I think this is what I thought was. It is like that old blotting paper, and this is simultaneously local and global. Now, if we are talking of new technologies, if we are talking about modernization, if you are talking about the new world, why not fuse it with the local and make it global, local? Why not try to create new things, by creating smaller but units which can become connected together in many ways? Now, this is really the question that I am asking for myself, and I think that's a question which we should raise. And this is how we are. We believe in this, but we also believe in this. and this person perhaps also believes in the stock market. So it is possible, you don't have to disbelieve things. Now, if you ask anybody to prove, okay, where is God gone, in this, where is God? How will you know? But if you ask here, then you can technologically prove that it is the satellite or something. I don't know what it is, but I'm saying we have to open up ourselves. And I found this, what happened? Couple of decades ago, I went to Ellora caves, Ajanta caves, and then I found this photograph, I found this structure, so I took it to my engineer friends, and I said, look at the columns there. This is all in rock, solid rock. But below, the column is missing. And here the column is staggered. And here the columns are two, and here the wall is hanging. Now, if you look philosophically, if you look at it spiritually, if you look at it in terms of theosophically, there are many reasons that these things have happened. Diffusion of orders, giving choices, giving everybody a scope to excel, giving them opportunities to be what they are. Now, there are many things, because if this was done and it took several centuries to do, and when we go there we wonder how can be done, then we ask this question, that there are certain beliefs which we have to look back to. And I thought that this is something which one has to see. So, we should add, subtract, juxtapose, counterpoint, and have a dialogue with multiple scales. And I think this is something which we need to understand and follow, because our heritage has this, and this is a proof. So, while doing then the office building, I was doing my office building, and I was not sure what is the definition of an office. Is it really a box that you do? Is it really a building which is multi-storied building? It is a glass tower. And if there was a space which doesn't say anything, can this not be my office, our office? So I was really trying to do. So I called it first of all Sangat, moving together. And then we started to make a building. Then I found villages in Rajasthan, and I found them in mud walls, etc. Then I discovered these old temples. So all these issues that I was looking at, I was wondering what is the nature and how was one built. But there were 2-3 things. One is, it has to be sustainable. It should be minimum air conditioner, electric energy used. It should get a lot of natural light, and it should be easy to maintain. And it should use all the waste products. That is all that is wasted and thrown, I would put them in, use them in the buildings. And first was to have monsoon water express itself. And then the issue was, if you do the building, what would be the nature? So I started thinking about a double structural system like ancient houses, with a thinner wall and thicker wall with storage and cooling system. Then I realized that the place to do is to create something which is magical. When I started my career earlier, I had not much money because of those economic houses. So the roof would not be waterproof, because I would say it is only for a few months, what does it matter? But then the water would leak and the client would shout and whatnot. But we will eventually become friends. And in summer it would become hot, and I said maybe we should think about this. So every time monsoon came, I thought of water. Summer came, I thought of heat, but now either the other way around. So as a result, the building never had the right kind of character. And that is really how I began my career. And then sometimes it never happened, but that I imagined. Because one day when I had built this, a brigadier was coming to the office, so he came here to see me. Sorry. Oh, this. Oh, sorry. Huh. A brigadier came here and he came like this, came to the door was closed, so he came back. Then again he came, then he didn't know where to go. Then he found a little opening, he came to the door here and he saw me inside. So I said, come this way. So he came back, he did not know. Again he went there was nobody at the gate. This happens to so many people even now. And then, so I thought maybe a client who came to shoot me and he came with his gun. And then he came and he got lost. He saw the peacock, he saw this, he saw the loss. And then he didn't know what to do, he will come back. Then maybe he saw me. Then finally, suppose he came, then somebody says, no, you go from this road like this and go in. He doesn't know where to go. He goes there and it's a small place. Then they call me and I meet him inside. I give him tea. We talk about everything else. He forgets about his gun and everything. Then I take him out and then he goes away. I found that this meandering route is like telling stories, Arabian Nights. Incidentally, Louis Kahn, who did these things, we bought together, he bought for himself, whole volume, 20 volumes of Arabian Nights. He used to tell stories. And I thought storytelling is a good thing. And I think every building has a story. Like the house I told you about, staircase and columns, I found a story there was, even Hussein's Gufa, which I will come, there is a story. So all these stories make life little joyous. You feel very happy for a minute, oh my God, it was a nice fun. So this is really what the story is about, that how does one come here and look at the forest here and forget that he has come to work. So all the people who come to the office, I think that they get relaxed, they get invigorated, there is music going on in the garden. And now I find that they are more outside than inside. But it is a nice thing to see that they are enjoying their life. So this is really what I found. And then there was, of course, the water going through. So these drawings I made to understand myself, the sequence and the procession of architectural promenade. Other thing was, as I said, waste products had to be bought. So these are all Guna tiles which were bought. These were then made specially for me in a different place. But the idea was a hollow tube, hollow space, like a village, and then the proportions. And then the landscape was made out of all the, again. The landscape was made with all the waste products from all the sites. So it becomes a very nice journey to come into this place. So the issue is, when we have a place, do we really slow down our walk? Do we really smell the flowers? Do we look around? Do we enjoy the shadows? Do we enjoy the sun? Do we really look at the rain coming and then there is a little waterfall? I think you have many places here which do this. So the question is, why not in a dry Ahmedabad place which should have such a landscape where people could enjoy? And then there was a thing which, my tree which was here, which died, so we made a memorial for the tree. And then you can see what it looks like. So there are many kinds of places in this. It is not one place. The staircase is long, narrow, then you get a little space there. Other place would be a big space. Third is a slightly shadow space. So it is a lot of variety. This is how the water cascades. This is our studio. You can sit here on the stool and look at the water coming, waterfalls. So it's possible to save energy. You can use natural resources fruitfully. insulate the building, and create something which is economical or at least efficient and sustainable. Here we do get all kinds of experiences of light and space. These are all brought on the truck, waste product. We only paid the transport. These are all broken bathroom tiles. And now this is the kind of forest that is there. And then, of course, the staff. So building can have materials which you like to use. There are very many materials available with us. Why not try to use them? Why not try to look at things fresh? Why not think about it not as a professional need, but a need of an artist, need of a poet, need of somebody else? And then our daughter's marriages were done here. You don't have to go and hunt for a plot. Then the next thing which I tried to do was, because I went with my children long back to Madurai temple, and I looked at this corridor and that whole journey and the shadow and the columns. When I had the chance to do the building in Bangalore, which is a garden city, I thought I will do like this, and so I'll create a pergola, the regular walkway, but garden included. And I think that garden would be a good thing to do. And so today the campus is surrounded, this is the surrounding area, but the whole campus surrounded by garden now. So this entire thing is garden. So corridors, passages can become journeys. The changing sunlight will tell you about different conditions of time. So you would have encounters which are different. It would connect you to relax. It would connect you to think and reflect. So there are things, which we never think of, but when you are walking on the place, you meet somebody, a professor or a scholar or somebody, you start encountering. Then when you are there in the class, it's something else. So the changing in climate, changing in landscape, changing in sunlight, I think is a very important thing for us to recognize. So this is how the whole landscape is. And incidentally, as the trees grow, the times look different. During the day, the sunlight and the shadow changes, so that also becomes different. So it is never the same thing next time. This is all in stone, local stone, and concrete columns. You can see what is happening there today. And I think this is the journey which I am going through all the time, trying to find out how to diffuse the absolute understanding of architecture as only pristine, isolated thing or an object, but as a living organism. Thank you so much.